everybody. Welcome to Ask an Expert. Welcome to what is many people's favorite version of Ask an Expert, which is the member video review with Jon Holling, affectionately known as Hangin with Jon. This is Jessa speaking if you're not watching, and that might come as a shock because I think the last 100 video reviews have been hosted by Kinsey, and I finally put it together that Kinsey schedules Ask an Expert episodes, and I was not getting the luck of the draw on video reviews ever. So I finally get to be in a video review, and I'm so excited for obvious reasons, just because it's so fun to obviously like watch horse videos for an hour, but also get to be a bit of like a visual learner and see all of your guys' amazing horses and hang with Jon. So Jon, thank you for doing this month after month and continuing to help us get better.
Thanks for having me. I always love coming on, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the videos.
And per usual, my first question is always, tell us a bit about what you're wearing.
Well, the Packers had a playoff game on, was it Sunday? Sunday? I don't know. Packers had a playoff game this weekend. It's all a blur because it's just been so exciting in our house. And as an owner, I felt that I should sport their gear for the day, and it's been chilly today here in Florida, so I wore this winter hat to be warm and ready to go. Hold on, I have to get a drink.
There it is. I don't think very many people just listen to this, but just in case, the Green Bay beanie, polo shirt, and mug are all.
Yeah, and it's water. It's not wine. It's like a good to go wine glass, but it seemed like inappropriate to be reviewing videos while drinking.
You gotta review sober. Although I wouldn't fault you for a little wine if you wanted to one time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have 7 videos to get into, which is kind of it's a great showing. And if anybody, I already see some hellos in the chat. Hello to Keegan, hello to Kara. Someone else said that they love the Packers gear. Say hello in the chat if you're here. Let us know who you are because we can't see the names. And certainly feel free to chime in if we're showing your video and you have more things to add. I'll just read the information that you sent along with the video, but please add information if you have it. Jon, is there anything else you want to say before we dive in? No,
I'm excited. This will be fun. And yeah, let's hit it.
All right, let's hit it. First one, we have hello from Australia from Sarah Jane. I don't know what time it is there. It might be good timing for this. All right. First one, I will talk while you watch. This is Keegan. She said this is a Nico update. He's coming 6 years old now. He's an off-the-track thoroughbred. You've seen him in a couple of the previous member video reviews. This video is from last weekend at a local jumper schooling show. It's their first 2-6 course, and they're looking for general feedback and also wanted to give you a progress update on how they're doing. You'll see a blue roll top come in. It was at about 40 seconds in, so it should be kind of soon. And she said that definitely surprised Nico coming out of the 2 strides. So she'd love advice on how to better prepare for situations like that, where jumps seemingly come out of nowhere. There it was.
Yep. That's too bad because it actually was a great ride through the 2 stride. And then, yeah, he looked surprised by it. I guess the first general thing I'd say, Keegan, is like what you're doing is what's going to prepare him for that, which is show him this stuff. Well done on the second attempt. I think in general, he looks great. He looks like he's coming right along. He has a really nice rhythm going around to all of the fences, which I love. And you're sort of keeping a good connection. As that connection improves, he should be able to start to lower his frame a little bit between the jumps. He looked like as he's going here, he's getting better and better. But in the beginning, he was a little bit high in his head carriage. It was a little hard to see because the video was small, but he looked a little bit high in his head carriage. Like he was kind of taking in everything as opposed to just the jump that he was heading to. So you would think in time, he will get better broke, more relaxed, and then you'll have an easier time getting him focused where you're going. Now, one thing, if I'm being critical as far as show jumping, I would say is as you came around the turn to that last line there to the yellow oxer, you had a whole lot of time to get there, and you cantered the whole way on the wrong lead. So for me, for training purposes, I would have done a simple change. If I couldn't do a flying change, would have done a simple change for a couple of reasons. One, obviously we get the horse in a better balance if the horse is on the correct lead. And then if the horse is on the correct lead and he's in a better balance, then he's going to have an easier time settling into the contact, relaxing in that canter, and then being able to go to the jump. The analogy I would say is if you were in a 20x60 arena, would you be able to counter canter around that ring and be as balanced as you would be on your true canter? And my guess is probably not. You would probably say to me, yeah, I could maybe manage the counter canter, but I'd have to really counter bend the horse and really hold it together, and it wouldn't be as good of a canter. So if that's the case, then we probably also don't want to go to a show jump on the wrong lead because we're going to be in not as good of a canter. So that'd be the one thing I would say. Now, as far as the specific question about that blue roll top, again, I thought you had a really good shot in. I thought you rode the two stride really well. To be honest, the way you rode it would be exactly how I would have ridden it at home or even at a schooling show, where I would say, look, I'm just going to ride this correct. I'm going to land soft. I'm going to just canter up there and assume that this horse is going to do the job. And then when they make the mistake, not make a big deal out of it, come back around, represent them and see if the horse is better for it. And so for a training ride, I didn't mind that ride at all. In competition, I think I would land off that second fence of the combination and be in the saddle much sooner, take a hold of the reins, put my leg on, ride them up into a very firm contact, and then probably ride that roll top quite hard, or that blue, it was roll top or barrels, I'm not sure which, but ride that blue roll top quite hard. The risk would be you might have a rail for it because you'd be riding it quite hard and tough, but you'd get over it the first time. As long as he doesn't have a stopping issue, at home, I would kind of allow him to make that mistake and then hope he's going to be better for it the next time. And in competition, I'd probably ride it quite hard to make sure we get it done the first time and hope I don't have the rail, because even a rail is better than a stop, because the stop in a competition then also is followed by time. So that would be sort of how you might ride that better in competition, but I truly didn't hate the ride there for a training ride. You're saying so it caught you off guard. So I'm assuming you were surprised that it happened. Like you thought he would just be great to it. So I guess sort of speaking for you, if it becomes a consistent problem, then you're going to have to ride him hard at home as well. I'd probably have my stick in the outside hand. So like that was a right bending line to it. So I'd have my stick in my left hand. And when I land off that second fence of the combination, I'd probably give him a little touch on the left shoulder. And then a little Kyle Carter elbow flap and gallop down there over it and just ride it a little bit strong until he starts understanding that, yeah, you have to go to it regardless.
That's awesome. And Keegan, I'm so glad that you keep sending updates of Nico. It's really fun to see a horse and rider pair progress. You guys look really great. And I have to admit, Kinsey gave me access to all these videos ahead of time. So I've spent the last hour watching them all already. I couldn't help myself. We have a lot of kind of youngsters today, so it's like a great video review for training rides. We're already on outfit 2, so I can't wait to see where this goes.
It was getting warm, so I wanted to go to my summer look now, so we went to the Packard baseball hat now.
That is a good look. I really like the gold hat.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right, next one is Becca North. I'm going to start playing it now. It's about a 3.5-minute video, so I will kind of share what Becca said as we watch. This is Carly. She's a 4-year-old Clydesdale Cross. Becca had her left ankle fused last January, and she wasn't cleared to ride until late July. Since July, she's been focusing on strengthening their flat work and her overall position after so much time out of the saddle. She sprinkled in some jumping, but nothing consistent, and now she started lessons again since September. Becca said she feels like they're in a good place to continue to move forward. The video is of their first jump lesson and the most jumping that they've done. These small jumps, or speed bumps, were more for Becca in getting her confidence back after not really jumping since 2016. So her question is that she's looking for overall critiques. And then when you start young horses over fences, how do you increase the height? Do you have any tips or suggestions to help young horses when they're learning to jump?
Okay. So first of all, I really like the horse. He's super cute. And I will say any sort of draft crosses like this that I've known have always been really good jumpers. They're always very careful and neat and tidy. I love the gymnastic exercises that you're doing. And I really like that they're not terribly big, right? Like you're teaching the footwork, which is super important. But like when you make a little mistake there where he kind of split his feet over that placing rail, it's not a big deal. There's no big punishment for it. As far as how you would increase the height as you go, I would say, one, be super progressive about it. Use nice, generous ground lines and think about shapes that you want to jump. So as you go up with the height, I would do it with verticals. Again, nice big ground line. And with oxers, I'd make them very good and ascending. One thing I would say is as you're, good correction there, as you're riding into these gymnastics with these placing rails, one thing that I always try to impress upon my students is that if you have a placing rail to a jump, you want to be looking at the placing rail, not the jump, right? Because you're trying to place the horse or have you and the horse agree on the place to the rail on the floor, because that is what's setting you to the jump. Very often riders will come in and they sort of ride just to the jump and not to the rail on the floor. And then what's happened to you here in your ride happens a lot, which is when the horse comes to those gymnastic lines with a takeoff rail or a landing rail, the horse actually splits their legs over the pole and not steps to it cleanly. And the reason I suspect that that's what's happening for you is that as I watch you canter, and I'm probably going to jinx it now, but as I watch you cantering around here, you have not once missed a distance to any single fence, but you have pretty consistently to the poles on the floor. So I think you're probably focusing more on the jump than you are on the pole on the ground. As a side note, I will agree with Taylor. This is an awesome ring. Like I have serious arena envy. I don't know where exactly you're located. You maybe have said it before, but that's an awesome ring. You're lucky to ride there. So I like the placing rails. Make sure you're focused on the placing rails. Also, when you start adding height, that's all right. That happens sometimes. I wouldn't worry about the little bump. You just pick it up and come again. But when you increase the height, I think I would want a placing rail to help you a little bit to it, but you have to master riding to those poles. That was very good. And then again, I would have those oxers be nice and ascending with a low front rail, a higher back rail. But again, be super progressive, because the cold-blooded cross horses, right? So like my wife had an awesome horse who was a Percheron cross, and he was amazing. And he actually had a fair bit of scope because he was just a little cold-blooded. But your horse looks like maybe he's got a little more Clydesdale than hers did, Percheron. So you want to also be careful that you're mindful that he probably does only have scope to a certain point. So don't feel like you have to test it. You want to teach it. You can get him to have a little bit more scope by being progressive, by working on nice gymnastics like you have set there, but always trying to set him up for success, because the good thing about him looks to be that he's laid back. He doesn't get upset. He doesn't get stressed out. You look like you have a very good feel and relationship with him, and you guys get along really nicely, which means he trusts you. And you want to make sure that you're always building that trust. So you're showing him exercises that you know he can be successful with, and that you're, as you're building up the height, you're doing it again with nice round shapes, ascending oxers, verticals. Never hang a rail high by itself. Have it filled in with a nice, generous ground line.
Awesome. Becca, I cannot help but watch. I can't help but smile when I watch you and your horse go. She's so cute. And I think it probably does help that you're in such a beautiful setting. There's lots of love for that arena in the chat right now, understandably. If you're here, tell us where you're riding. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Bridget Dobbs. I'll start playing this. I think this is about a 2-minute video. She said she's riding her coming 7-year-old off the track thoroughbred mare, Reagan. Reagan raced 3 times in 2020 and was restarted in December of 2021 for the 2022 Thoroughbred Makeover, doing show hunters and jumpers. The last few months, I've been trying to improve our suppleness and connection. And while it's gotten better, I feel like we've hit a plateau. So definitely looking for thoughts on that. I do seem to get the best results on this from Jon's lessons, especially with spiraling circles. Also looking for thoughts on her right to left lead change. Her left to right is very smooth, but she always skips into the right to left and it isn't consistently clean.
All right. So it's a cute horse. I quite like it. I love that the lessons are helping. I would say you probably want to keep working lots of transitions, and not just like within from trot to walk or trot to canter, but also within the gait. So you go forward in the canter and then you collect in the canter. The other thing you could play with, just, and this is a very general statement because I have no idea what you have, is you could play around a little bit with bits and see if there's something that she likes, that she wants to be a little softer and rounder to. But I think the big thing is if you want a horse to be soft and improve that connection and get more supple and lovely in your hands, transitions are going to be the big thing that do that, because otherwise what happens, and I don't see you doing this, which is great, but what does tend to happen to people is as they're trying to make those horses come around, they end up getting in a bit of a tug of war with them. And then the horses get unhappy and the tail swishes and the ears pin and all of that. And I love that I don't see any of that here. She looks like a really happy horse and quite keen to do the job and relaxed, and gives a really good picture that way. So I would do lots of transitions within the paces. That was a really nice lead change from the left to the right. So well done. Yeah. And just a little skip there. How old was this one again, Jess? I don't remember what you said.
Coming 7.
Coming 7. Okay. So I think a couple things as far as lead changes go. I will say doing lead changes and teaching horses lead changes is something that I tend to do. And I think I've said this before in some of these lessons. I tend to do those as almost like a byproduct of all of the rest of the work rather than going in and working on the changes. So by that, what I mean is if you have a really good canter and you have a really good connection and you work on all that stuff, the changes tend to normally sort themselves out. The good news is as a coming 7-year-old and with the level of connection that you have, which is good, but not exceptional, right? It's not the picture you'd have cantering down center line at Kentucky. It's not a dressage frame, which is okay. But with that level of connection you have, those are pretty good changes. The one left to right is obviously very natural for your horse. And the one right to left, she wants to do it. She's very good at it. Just gets her legs tangled a little bit. So a couple things. I would think when you're actually doing the changes, have the best possible canter you can beforehand and the best possible canter you can after. And by that, I mean, once you do the change, even if like, okay, she fumbled into that one to the left, immediately go to work on that canter so that it's the best possible canter that you can have. As far as setting up the changes and actually riding them, you want to think about having shoulder in. So we're talking the right lead to the left lead. You want to talk about having shoulder in to the right, just a little, as much as your horse can handle. Don't go bananas on me, but you want to have shoulder into the right. You want to then think about changing the bend. So wrapping your horse around your left leg. So if you could think about that, you'd have haunches to the left, right? You'd have slight bend left. I have to like visualize this in my head as I'm doing this. Slight flexion to the left. And then when you feel like you've got that position, so the haunches are to the inside, right? So you're cantering on the right lead, going across the diagonal. The haunches are to the left. You've got left bend. Then in that moment, you're like, okay, I own it. Everything is good. Then go ahead and ask for that change. As opposed to just kind of cantering across the diagonal and being like, cool, let's swap. And then you kind of throw yourself into the other lead. The danger with that is then you tip to the inside, she tips to the inside, you end up a little bit out of balance. So I'd be doing lots of simple changes. I would actually start it with even your mare who is good at changes. I would start it, I would go right lead canter. I would be cantering, positioning her shoulder into the right, and then I would walk. Then I would change the bend. Then I would canter left. And I would do a lot of those simple changes until they were perfect. Then I would go into the canter, work on the flying change. I would go canter to the right, position shoulder in, change slightly to the left, and then go ahead and get that. Obviously, by change the position to the left, I mean, so you have shoulder in right, haunches go to the left, get bend through her rib cage to the inside, haunches to the inside, and then you ask outside leg, outside rein for the new lead. That's a lot of info, I realize. Flying changes are a really tricky thing to teach and tell you how to do it without being there seeing it. But those are some of the things I would do. You could also just bring in a placing rail and ride to the placing rail so she learns how to be clean in that one particular change. But I don't know that I'd get too worked up about it. The danger you could get into is if you get too intense with the changes, then you could get her a little bit stressed out about it. And then she's going to start changing early on you. And then you're going to lose that lovely softness that you have that we all like so much. So hopefully that helps. And I'll be interested to hear sort of at the next one how the changes are going. But I love the horse, and I would do lots of transitions to just keep working on that softness and that suppleness. And I didn't see her looking like she was gnashing her teeth or upset in her mouth, but you might play around with bits and see if there's something that maybe she's even a little softer in. But all in all, I think it's a really nice picture. I quite like it.
That's really interesting advice. Bridget, I hope you do keep us posted on how that all goes. Oh my God. Please tell me that other people are seeing these outfit changes. This is my favorite one yet. What prompted this one?
Well, I'm a Packer owner, so this is my owner's hat.
If you were going to a game, is this what you would wear?
Well, I didn't when I went to the game last time because I couldn't find it. Jen had very kindly put it in a Tupperware for me in her closet before we left, almost like she didn't want me to find it, which is shocking. But yeah, this is like, if you own a share of the Green Bay Packers, you have to wear this. I should have been wearing this up in my skybox when I was there, but I found it. And so I thought I'd bring it out today because it's official gear.
It's pretty funny to hear it was in a Tupperware because that is where cheese belongs.
Yeah, no, we got to keep it fresh.
Do you have, I'm sure you do, superstitions around watching the game? And if you do, what do they include?
Yeah, so I have to wear a jersey. And if we lose a game in that jersey, then I can't wear it for the rest of the season, which is getting tricky because right now I've got Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and Eddie Lacy, and I just couldn't bring myself to wear Aaron Rodgers. I wore Brett for a while, then we lost a game, so now I'm in an Eddie Lacy jersey at every game, and it's been working so far, so I hope it keeps going.
Okay, and is your family allowed to do what they want, or do you have rules around their activities too? I know in this house, I'm married to a Dolphins fan, and I need to follow orders about when I'm allowed to like attend and what I should be wearing.
Yeah, so Caden and I have a deal because he's from Ocala, right? He was born here. So he's actually a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. So Green Bay is his second team and Tampa Bay is my second team. So we always wear each other's team's jerseys when the other guy's team is playing. So Caden has to wear a Green Bay jersey when the Packers are playing. He has to be supportive, which he's not always, but he's supposed to be. And Jen will come in and sit down, and she knows to be supportive. She's pretty well trained. We've been together for like 27 years, so she gets the drill.
How are the Buccaneers doing? Are they still in the playoffs?
Yeah, they won last night. They beat the Eagles, made them look terrible, and forced Jason Kelsey's retirement, which really upsets Jen because that actually is her favorite Kelsey brother.
Well, yeah.
But he cried like a baby on the sideline, so whatever.
Pretty cute. All right, well, the Hollings are having a good year in football.
Yeah. Last
question on the superstitions are, do you have superstitions in riding? Like, you have to wear something specific to watch games. Is there anything that falls into your riding competitions?
Oh, yeah. I'm super superstitious. I've got, I've got like a bracelet that's made out of a horseshoe from a horse that I have my best placing at a 5-star on that I have to wear across country. I'm not overly religious, but I always say a little prayer before I leave the start box. And if I don't, I start freaking out. So those are probably my two big things. And then in general, if it's a big event, I just like not to talk to anybody, but I don't know that that's a superstition as much as just being a jerk.
Someone in this chat just said, I'm just a little stitious. That is really, the bracelet sounds really cool. I mean, I've heard about all of the like horse hair jewelry, but making jewelry out of a horseshoe I like that a lot.
Yeah, the only thing is I have to be careful because when it's hot and I sweat, it rusts, and so I don't want it to get ruined. So it's coated in like a lacquer, but I got to redo that every sort of year or two, otherwise it'll start rusting on me.
Oh, that's a good point. All right, on to the next video. So this is a shorter video and a longer description. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read for a while. This is from Sarah Jane, who's in Australia, who's here now. Thank you for being here, Sarah Jane. She said, ahead of the next video with John, I wanted to give an update on Pip. I sent in a video about 6 weeks ago of our cross country. This was the llama neck and napping home horse. John's advice re the llama neck was to raise my hands and keep the corners of his mouth. She said that worked like a treat. Also, as per John's advice, I wrote him in a softer single joint bit and it made him so much calmer and less llama. I found that when he started to nap home, if I waggle my whip in his eye line of the direction he's napping, it's the perfect distraction and allowed me to break through to say, stop that and do this instead. It's going very well now. He's still napping from time to time, but it's manageable and he's doing it less the more that his confidence grows. And the more I stay on top of him every single stride, the more his confidence grows. Do you have any advice for riding horses like this? The horses that, if left to their own decisions, they only make bad ones. Pip is incredibly talented, but takes every bit of me to ride every single stride. I can't passenger for even a millisecond. And this is a video of Sarah's first bank ever, his first guitar jump, and a whole lot of fun. She said she would love John's thoughts. It's a bit hairy, but very fun. Her words, not mine. All right.
This looks way better. Good job. All right. You said this is a fairly short video?
Yes, this is probably 30 or 40 seconds.
Okay, cool. I'm going to watch. Okay, so yeah, I think the connection and all that looks way better. I really like the idea, and I don't think I said it, so good on you to figure that one out, of putting the stick up in their eye line when they're kind of napping and heading home. That is a really good trick. I know this is going to sound silly, and I don't mean it to be funny. You do just have to be a little careful you don't poke them in the eye, because poked one in the eye, but I've got them in the eye one time accidentally because they're freaking out. And I'm like, no, don't go that way. And then they bump into it. So you just be a little cautious of that. And with that in mind, when you have a stick, like I have a racing whip that I use cross country that has the little like leather bits that stick out like pokers. I don't know why those are there. I guess they must do something, but I get nervous about those up there when you have a horse that's napping and you want to hold the stick up there to sort of get them to get their attention that way. So be careful of that. And then I guess the thing I would say is, so I watched that round. The connection looks much better, much nicer, way less llama. Still looks a little bit like when you jumped up on the bank, he's a little bit frantic because you're probably trying to keep him on task. So he's like jumps up the bank and then he's quick to get off the other side of the bank. And then you come around to the jump after the bank and you can see he's not quite focused on that yet. So one of the best tools that we have for training horses is repetition. So I would do that exact same track that you just did. I would do it again, exactly the same way, and see if you could ride it slower and more relaxed every time so that your horse starts to figure out where he's going and he can keep thinking and start realizing that like, hey, I don't have to just react. I can also think my way through this stuff. Excuse me. So I think repetition would be super helpful now. Now, with one that also wants to be a little nappy and run home, sometimes repetition can be a difficult thing because then they start to figure out where stuff is. And then they try to be naughty on the third or fourth time, like, hey, lady, I've had enough of this. So you have to balance that out. But in general, I think it looks really good. You've definitely improved that contact and that connection. And I guess I would just say I would go back and I would repeat that again. Also, your horse jumps guitars way better than any of mine because I don't think I've ever jumped a guitar. So that's pretty cool.
Did I miss a jump that's shaped like a guitar in that round?
Yeah, the first one is a guitar.
Oh, I was curious. I was like, I wonder if that's an Australian thing.
Yeah, no, I wondered too. And then I was like, oh, by guitar, she meant guitar.
She's in the chat and she said our biggest challenge has been my and then his relaxation because I'm a bit nervy. Getting better each ride, but man, he's a lot of horse.
Okay, I see. Yeah. So then I think honestly the repetition is going to be even more important. Also, I would say if he's in front of your leg and going to the jumps well enough, you could actually trot a lot of that as well, as long as it's not too big. Because then he might just slow down and think a little bit. You have to kind of play that out sort of and feel your way through that as to if that's a good idea or not. But I am a big advocate of trotting jumps, and I'm a big advocate of trotting cross-country jumps up to a certain height. Obviously, you don't want to go like trot a giant 4-foot table, but early on in the track, sort of getting out there and letting him just think his way through and trot stuff and work his way over the jumps. I think the slower you can be in your mind, having a plan, but relaxed slow in your mind, the more he's going to be that way. And then the more he's going to think. And that's the thing is like, it's tricky because we want a horse that's going to react, but we want a horse that's going to think first. We want them to think. And then if stuff needs to happen quickly, then they react to it. You don't want to train them by making them react to things and do it all off of instinct. You want a horse that's thinking its way through. And then if something goes wrong, they react. That's great. But I don't want to train them that way. I want them to think their way through the stuff.
Do you have any suggestions about helping slow your mind down? Like watching you ride, John, you look like you have a very calm mind. And I know that speaking of repetitions, like of course you have an advantage, like you do this as a living. But what would you suggest to a student who just like has a tendency to get a bit active?
I think one thing is I never go jump a course, whether it's at home or in competition, without being 100% certain of where I'm going to be on that course every single step of the way. So like maybe with a baby horse, I might just go out and play over some jumps and like just pick stuff up as I'm going, but it's pretty rare. Like when I go pick up a course, I will do what we just saw in that video and just like, no, I'm going to jump the guitar. I'm going to jump up the bank. I'm going to jump off the bank. I'm going to jump that last fence, whatever the last fence was. I can't remember now. And I know where I'm going to be from the moment I pick up trot to pick up canter to go around and jump the fences. So there's no surprises to the horse. It is 100% being communicated from me to that horse that this is where we're going to go. Because then I can be relaxed. And then I think the other thing is sort of accepting, and look, it is easier because I do it all day. But accepting of the fact that I don't have to do everything. I have to allow the horses to learn from the exercises. So like we were saying with Keegan's horse, when it stopped at that blue roll top, to me, that's not the end of the world. Now, some people might disagree with me and say like, they can never, ever stop. They can never, ever make that mistake. But for me, it's a learning opportunity for the horse. I just want to come around there and just give it the best ride I can and know that if the horse makes a mistake, we'll just go back and we'll repeat it and we'll fix it. Now, look, that's not the way I'm going to ride in competition. In competition, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to get it done. And I think that's why people struggle either as sort of amateur riders or new riders, or just maybe somebody who doesn't have a ton of experience. Is you in the back of your mind, you think, well, am I going to know how to do that? And that is something that you learn in time. But at home, I really try not to go there. I try to not press on them, override them, get worried about making it happen. I don't want to make it happen at home. I want it to happen because I've explained the exercise. So like my schooling facility here at home, I have some gallop jumps, but it's mostly complexes, and everything we do is a gymnastic. I know Lucinda Green comes here, and so we argue about it, and she hates me for it. Well, she doesn't hate me. Lucinda loves me, but she loves to argue with me about it because I want to know all the numbers, all the strides, everything that's I'm going to be out there doing, and then I'll react and let the horse work it out. But I want to know that stuff so that I can be focused and chill and just think about the basics. So then I can think about when I canter into fence, I think I want my heels down. I want my leg on. I want to stretch tall. I want to have good hands. I want to go into that nice automatic release. I want to have a smooth turn here. I'm not thinking roll top, table, bank, ditch, water. Oh my God. Right. I'm thinking about just the details of it, and I'm letting the big picture then kind of work itself out.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. That's kind of like a life learning too. The preparation really does instill confidence. Can't believe how many we have of these. But as an owner, you kind of have to.
Yeah, no, you do. This one I thought was more formal. Seemed
Right.
like it fit into the like connection dressage stuff. So
Yes,
it's
definitely
like
more
old
evening
school.
wear.
It's old school dressage top hat.
That would be wonderful in a dressage chest.
Yep, it's more comfortable too.
Alrighty, so next up we have Taylor Lemon, and I mean, I just love watching this horse. His name's Marty. I don't remember how long this one is, so it's a short intro. I'll just tell you what she's looking for here. She says, looking for general positional advice. As we've been focusing on dressage for the past few months, this is a jumping video. Do you have advice for jumping a still growing horse during their awkward growth spurts? Marty's about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch taller behind than he is in front. So here is Marty and Taylor.
So the big thing, just as I'm watching this and I'll keep going, is when you're jumping one that's still growing, the best advice I can give you is just be patient with them. I've got one right now, Pretzel, who I'm doing the beginner rider series with, who is still growing. And if they really start feeling super awkward, just give them time. Like I've give Pretzel a week off here, a week off there, just so he can kind of figure out where he is. So patience for sure. And then I think as well, lovely horse. I think as well, just thinking about connection and contact, but not necessarily the profile view that you're looking for, if that makes sense. So when I'm riding one like this situation where I'm thinking, okay, this horse is growing and he's feeling awkward today, I don't want to pull his head down and make him round. I want him to be on the end of the rein and a little bit up and out and taking me to the jumps. And I sort of forgive that maybe the shape of the horse from front to back isn't exactly what I want. Again, like we talked about with some of the other stuff, lots of transitions will help with that. But again, I think the big thing is as they're growing, it's sometimes hard because you're like, well, this is my horse and I want to ride. But as they're growing, don't be afraid to say, you know what, you are really feeling awkward right now. I'm going to give you a week or 2 weeks or even a month to just like figure some stuff out and not get too worried about it. And I'll be back and check in with you when you're done with this little growth spurt. Because it does come, it's weird, right? It comes in stages. You're like, oh, okay, so this is it. We got it now. And then you're like, wait a minute. His blanket doesn't fit anymore. And now his hind end is 4 inches higher than his front end. And sometimes you have to just let him catch up, because if you get working on him too much through that stuff, then, then you can get a little bit jerky Yankee on them and trying to like, well, you were so good last week. What's going on? And you get frustrated, and then they can get a little bit frustrated. So I think the biggest thing you can do there is patience. Now, that said, that video looked awesome. He looked very happy. You jumped everything well. You have a really good still position in the air. You don't throw yourself around at all, which is super important on a young horse, especially. It's important on all horses, but it's especially important on young horses that you just stay really nice and still, because you want your horse focused on what he's doing, not where his rider is. And so I thought you did a really good job that way of just staying still and letting your horse work it out. I loved it. And I liked how, you utilized that arena really nicely. It wasn't packed full of jumps because it wasn't the biggest arena in the world, but you used it super efficiently and were able to have a good little exercise of sort of turning to a couple of jumps and keeping it positive and fun, and very well done.
Yes, thank you for sharing that video, Taylor. I'm amazed by those two. I feel like it was yesterday that Taylor got Marty, and he's so young. I don't remember how young he is, but I mean, every time I see an update, I'm just like, they're really becoming such a partnership. It's really fun. So keep those videos coming.
Yeah, please. It's fun to watch.
Alrighty. Next up, our final two videos are both from Lauren. And she said, these are both horses I don't own and may not get to ride in the future. So she's looking for suggestions on how to help them as a rider. She said the first one should resonate with a lot of Ride IQ members and their horses. I'm just going to read it. All right. This is, let me circle back. Taylor just commented in the chat. She said, we're limited to a 20 by 40 meter arena this winter. Do you have any advice for creative jump setups in small arenas?
Yeah, it is tricky, right? That is tough. So I think the one thing is when you set stuff, you're going to have to set like one exercise for the day. You're not going to be able to set up a couple of things. So there's the old Jimmy Wofford pinwheel, which is just 4 fences, verticals, on like a 20-meter circle. And you just can set them on the floor to start. You can put 2 up and 2 on the floor. And you just sort of pick the jumps up and canter around. Eventually you can have all 4 of them up, and you can canter around on to the left and then to the right. Make sure you've got ground lines both sides, and it doesn't need to be big. I think that's a super important thing when you're jumping in a smaller arena, is you don't need to jump gigantic. And the other thing is anytime you do set a line, right? So you might in a 20 by 40 be able to set up, a double of 2 or 3 strides. Remember that distance needs to be shorter by probably, depending on the number of strides, I usually just take out one of the takeoffs or landings, so like 6 feet, and play with it that way, because a distance that's on 12 feet outside, you're not going to be able to make that work inside. Bounces are a great exercise. So you can set up a series of like 3 to 4 jumps with bounces somewhere between probably 10 and 11.5 feet, depending on how big you get them. And again, you can work at both directions. I think that's one thing that's super important when you're in a smaller ring like that, is you want everything to be jumpable both ways. So bounces are really good. Another one that's really kind of fun is you could set up a combination of hogsbacks. So you've got a low front rail, a high middle rail, and then a low back rail. You don't need ground lines on that because the low rails are kind of your ground lines. So you can go work back and forth over that. I love that exercise to help horses with their shape. I usually set it around 30 to 33 feet, so probably 30 feet inside, center rail to center rail. You kind of probably want to just start with one of the hogsbacks if you've never done it before, but that really helps the horses get a nice round shape. So you could, if you were really creative, probably figure out a way to have the bounces on one long side, so like 3 bounces, and then have the hogsbacks on the other long side. So you could kind of go trot or canter down through the bounces, hang a left or a right, go canter down over your hogsbacks, loop back around, do the hogsbacks the other way, and then come back down through your bounces. So those are just a couple ideas of things you could give a try.
That's awesome. I think a lot of people are probably facing that right now. I just spoke to a rider earlier today who's also in a 20 by 40. So you're not alone, Taylor. Also question, just out of my own curiosity, because I've never had a really young horse. When can you feel confident they've stopped growing?
Oh man, I don't know. I think the one thing I would say is eventually they start to fill out and go wider. And when that starts to happen, usually they're done going up. So it's very different depending on the breeds, right? Like a thoroughbred, I think by the time they're 5, they're probably well done. Unless they've spent a bunch of time at the track, because then I do think sometimes they put all of their energy into running. And then when they stop running, they actually will sometimes grow later. But I've had some of my warm blood horses that I swear grew well into their 7-year-old year. Kurt, and you guys know Kurt, right? I got him as a 5-year-old. He's 8 now, and I think he just stopped growing last year. He is gigantic now. So I think it depends a little bit on the breed.
Yeah, that's amazing. Of course we know Kurt. We know him. We love him. He's a staple on Ride IQ now.
There you go. He's the man.
All right. Back to where I was starting with Lauren. Again, 2 videos, both horses she doesn't own, and she might not get to ride them in the future. So she's looking for suggestions on how to help them as a rider. This first video is her 3rd training ride on a horse that's right off the track and was bought by an adult amateur re-rider mom. The horse is 5 years old, basically still track broke. Lauren still has this horse for occasional training rides, and she may end up taking him in for full training. She said she loves him so much, and he's so smart and tries so hard. This video is just 42 seconds.
So this is the pinwheel that I was just talking about with rails on the ground. So very good little exercise for an indoor ring like this. I love that we're using it. It's a great way to work on canter and keep the horses interested in it without feeling like you have to sort of grind away on them. And you can see it's Lauren, right?
Correct.
You can see how Lauren actually, one time she skipped that pull down there at the far end because she probably was thinking, ooh, I don't know that this canter is perfect. I'm just going to pause a second, and just went around it. So if you can set it up like that in your ring, that's a great idea. So I think that's a great exercise to work on with that horse for sure. I'm assuming then you probably go back and work it the other way.
This is the same video.
Yeah, just watching it again. That's great. So like as far as stuff you can work on to keep sort of improving the horse, I think, you know, stuff like this is very good, and you can see he's getting better and better in his connection as he goes. You could do, I mean, there's just so much stuff you could do, right? Like you could do some trot pole stuff. Certainly any kind of lateral work is going to be good. I've had a lot of success the last couple of years with my horses, helping them with their lateral suppleness, going back to the old leg yield on the long side. I didn't really go there a lot in sort of the recent past, but I was riding with Peter Gray actually, and he had me work on it with a horse, and I was like, oh wow, I kind of forgot about that one. So like nose to the wall, leg yields up and down the long side are a really good exercise. I think the trick is you want to make sure you don't need a ton of angle. Like you just need three tracks. You don't need to go all the way to 4. You want them to be quite nice and straight in it. You have to be careful. You don't want to make them overly round. You also have to be careful like how close to the rail you get. So looking at this ring, you know, if you get too close to the rail, then you're going to whack your horse's head on a post, which sounds ridiculous, but you would. And just make sure you don't pressure them too hard so they don't sometimes try to escape out over the rail, because I've had them do that just on my little dressage arena boards, and for that, it just makes a little bit of a mess. But you can overpressure them in that sometimes. So that might be some stuff to try, some leg yields on the rail, some trot pole stuff. And again, I feel like I kind of say the same thing all the time, but lots of transitions are going to help all the time.
Amazing. Lauren, he is really fun to watch. It's wild. It's so wild to see horses that only have a few rides under their belt off the track and trying to like get settled in a new job.
Yeah, it looks great.
So this next one, also Lauren, this is a catch ride at a novice event, her full cross country course. So this is a 3-minute video. She said she had this horse twice before this weekend, and then they went on to be successful at a training move up 2 weeks later. This horse was then sold to a very sweet family. So again, we'll look at her riding for this one, and it's also just a really fun cross country video to watch. So I will cue this one up.
All right.
The Kentucky Classic.
I know this place. So the first thing I'd say that I really like is the first 2 jumps that I saw, you were absolutely straight on a line, knew exactly where you were going. You're letting the horse sort of read the fences very early, not cutting turns, not carrying too much bend, which is really good to see. And it just looks like a metronome of a ride, which is really good to see. And what a good jumper, huh? Just knees up by his eyeballs. Love that. I also love how at that first fence, I heard you say good boy and reward him for doing his job. I think that's super important. I think I sometimes make fun when I'm out on cross country and hear somebody like just jabbering on the whole time to their horse, but I really love it. I love when people are talking to their horses out there and telling them they're good. So I think that was a really good thing to do, because usually they quite like it. Good ride into the ditch. Nice shot out. Well done. And the thing I like there is, you moved up to the fence after the ditch. but you did it with your leg and your seat. You didn't lean at it at all. And that's how you ride up to a fence on cross country, is you attack with your leg, you attack with your seat, but you hold with your upper body just in case maybe this horse is going to add a step in. So that was really well done. There was no leaning at it. Well, that was a good example of that. Isn't it so much fun to ride at the Kentucky Horse Park? Because you can just see like where they are jumping around the 5-star.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. Nice ride into the water. And that's good. You could tell you really trusted him down there to just go through the water. And you were rewarded for it, right? You didn't have to override it. And then you were able to just ride to a nice soft distance on the way out. I like that a lot. And I like the connection here, right? Like you can see there's no slack in your rein, really. It's not hard. You're not pulling. There's no slack in the rein, but you've got a contact. Now, if we're going to be critical, the one thing I would say is you sort of set your hand down into what I'd call like a bridge position, which is great for galloping. But when you ride up to these fences, you want to pick your hands up off of that bridge, because you do want that sort of classical straight line from your horse's mouth to your hand to your elbow. So when we ride cross country, because we're on very often galloping horses, thoroughbred type horses, or warm blood horses that really gallop, they get strong, and we'll set our hands down into, we get an advertisement too. We set your hands down into the neck, into that bridge position, but that does break that line, right? And then you get the bit pulled down into the bars of their mouth right there where we have teeth, like back where your wisdom teeth would be. You pull down into the bars of their mouth, and that can get a little uncomfortable for them. And then they're not going to be as willing to give you a nice round shape and jump up over those fences. So I'd say if I'm going to make one critique of your ride, it would be that you pick your hands up off of the neck, sort of 10 to 12 strides in front of each fence, so that you get that nice straight line from your elbow to your hand to your mouth. Why is she on this? Is she a member? Because she shouldn't even be allowed to be on here.
Of course she's a member. Everyone
she had to be a member.
Attention. We have a very important clarification to make. Jon Holling has set the record straight. The cheese heads were in a clear plastic Tupperware, not hidden away in the slightest, just put away.
Yeah.
Very important for everyone to know. This sounds like a classic husband-wife.
It was in her closet. I'm just saying. But yes, that is back to work.
Right.
I'm
Team Jen. I just want to.
Yeah, I know you are. Everybody's Team Jen.
It's
unreal. That was, it was a really lovely ride. It was like, it's exactly what you want. It was a hunter round around cross country. It was beautiful. But I think you could focus on that connection a little bit more in front of the fences, get your hands up off of the neck so that you can have that nice soft feel, and that your horse then can maybe throw just an even better shape. He's very good with his legs. I'd love to see him use his body a little bit more. Taylor is right. I have not had a wardrobe change in a little bit, and that's because I've run out. I was very excited about changing outfits throughout the show, but I used them all very quickly because I got excited.
Timing is everything.
Yeah.
We got a good taste of the outfits.
Yeah, okay.
I was thinking the same thing about Lauren's round, that it looked like a hunter round on cross country, which just
is beautiful.
Yeah, so calming to watch. That was really awesome. He loves his job. It's great that he went to a great family. And Lauren just said, thanks. It's a privilege to get so many nice horses. With that, we've concluded this month's Hanging with Jon member video review. I had someone very early on ask how to submit videos. So video reviews happen every month, and you can submit your video by emailing us at team@ride-iq.com, or send us a message on Facebook or Instagram or anywhere you can find us. It's always just me and Kinsey. So we'll be there to get your video from you, and Jon will be here to review it, hopefully in a wardrobe that's equally as entertaining as the reviews like we got today.
You have to keep winning.
Jon, what's coming up next for the Packers?
It's a big one. It's going to be tough. We're playing the 49ers Saturday night. I'm going to need all of you guys to be cheering for the Packers. We are underdogs by 10 points, which is a lot. Mm-hmm. We are not expected to do well, but I'm feeling the love. I think he's going to do it. You don't get that, Jessa. Our quarterback's last name is Love.
Oh, I was going to say, who's he?
Yeah, Jordan Love. So I think we're gonna get it, but I'm also probably not going to put money on it.
Okay. Well, come together. You already have, because as an owner, but come together, Ride IQ community. All of us Saturday night, we're busy, or Sunday morning for Sarah.
8 o'clock Eastern time.
All right. Well, I'm going to be there cheering for you, hoping for a happy John on Sunday morning. We'll do what we can as a collective.
I appreciate that.
Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much, John. I mean, everyone loves these and loves your lessons, of course, and just we're so happy to have you so involved.
Well, I appreciate it. I love being involved. I love doing the video reviews, and I'm glad everybody's sending them in. That was great. I think that's probably, I feel like that might be the most videos we've had.
It was a good number. Yeah.
Yeah,
we have to, I mean, a lot of that falls on me and Kinsey, just making sure everyone knows they're coming up. So we're getting better at scheduling ahead of time. And I hope that I get to come back for another video review. I'm always in the comments. Kinsey never reads my comments. I'm here whether I'm hosting or not.
I will make sure that I figured out how to work this now, and I can see the comments. So I will read your comments when you post them.
When I'm in the audience. Thank you so much. That feels good. All right. Well, go Packers. Have a great week. And everyone else.